Twitch is slow. Hi, everybody. It's Friday night. I don't know, does TGIF have any meaning anymore as we head into this month? Most of you are looking at a month. I know for me and my family, a month ago was my last time out at a public appearance at the Street Trust candidate forum, which I ended up getting the Street Trust endorsement. So that was a pretty nice win for our team. We're really excited about that. I still don't see Twitch online, but I guess they'll be able to catch up. I hear that's where the smart people are hanging out these days. So thanks to those of you who are watching on Facebook and Periscope via Twitter and YouTube. I appreciate you being here. We are working on getting our captioning up to better speed. We're going to explore some new technologies for that. So forgive us if the captioning is a little off tonight. I have an amazing team behind the scenes that has worked really hard to make this one of the most accessible campaigns. We don't talk about it a lot, but from day one, before we even launched way back in the summer of 2019, our first edition of our website went through equity lenses, and we had consultants from affected communities looking at the accessibility of our website. And even now, we do try to make our campaign as accessible as possible. I think we're the only mayoral candidate who has their webpage translated into Spanish. So you can find that at sarah2020.com/es. So it's Friday night. Many of you are probably outside because it's really nice, and maybe you'll be listening to this later on. If so, welcome back after the fact. I'll try to keep it timely anyway. I can hear all my neighbors outside doing yard work. I hope that they're using nice, clean, electric-powered tools and not engines that are emitting a lot of fumes and dirty things into the air, because I've been enjoying the clean air quality that we've had from our streets not being so congested. It's been so nice to be able to breathe so clearly. Even for those of you who have seasonal allergies, I experience those myself sometimes. They seem to have been a little bit less, and maybe that is because we're inside a little bit more, but also maybe just the air quality is making it a little bit easier on our system. I don't know. But yeah, I've been enjoying that clean air quality. I hope that you are too. I hope that you all have nice plans if you're celebrating Easter this weekend and today is Good Friday for you. I hope that you're able to do that in a way that's meaningful for you, even if you're not able to gather with family. For those of you for whom it was Passover this week, I also want to wish you a happy Passover. And yeah, I'm just going to keep this real quick update, tell you what's been going on over here at the campaign, a couple of things that are on my mind, what we've been up to, and how you can even get involved this weekend. So it's going to be really nice, and we need you to stay involved. So I'll give you a couple of quick news updates of things I want you to pay attention to that might not be on your radar. But one of the reasons that I think that folks are keeping an eye on me and my campaign, at least who consider themselves progressives, is because I talk about things that are at the margins, and I don't always focus on mainstream media narratives, and I do try to find those stories that aren't being told. And a big one for me is always the people who are engaged in sex work. For those of you who know, in my Rethinking Public Safety plan, I've looked at sex work decriminalization and that movement really through a racial justice lens, and thinking about the fact that, you know, when you talk about who does sex work in our country, it's 33% of sex workers identify as Black, only 17% identify as white, 11% as Latino, and 8% as multiracial. Over 3/4 of those, almost 80%, are cisgendered females. So it's really women's work. And another 20% are transgender females. So this is a feminist issue. It's an intersectional feminist issue, and something that's very important to me, because when you talk about women, you're not just talking about women. You're talking about women and their children and their families, because we all know, especially in this time, I don't know how many of you are doing a lot of that caring work, but oftentimes that caring work, paid or unpaid, is done by women too. So I got a call from Willamette Week this week. They let me know that U.S. sex workers and quote unquote prurient businesses were being excluded from COVID-19 disaster loans from the SBA. And they asked me if I had a comment on that because I have talked a lot about sex workers previously. First of all, when Mayor Ted Wheeler said that he wouldn't take campaign contributions from people in the sex industry, and I just said, no, that's not really unacceptable. These people need a voice in our politics, and they need to be represented. And then basically he said, yeah, so if you're, I will take money from strippers, which I thought, well, woohoo, big moves there, Mayor. But anyway, I've been on the side of, people who are doing this work since day one. And I really am upset that they're falling between the cracks when it comes to the support that's coming from our federal government. I mean, of course, this is coming from the pervert in chief, right? Can I say that when I'm running for mayor? He really is such an awful human being in so many ways. But the actual language is just so offensive. And this is just something that's so disheartening when you think about the people who are most vulnerable in our society right now, are the ones who don't have access to those even minimal safety nets that come from government. So I do hope that our local government will step up and bridge that gap for these folks. I did manage to find a couple of resources. I apologize. I haven't done a deep level of homework in reaching out to the community on this, and I'll try to get to that pretty quickly. But there does seem to be a GoFundMe. And that GoFundMe, I will post to my Twitter right after this call. I'm actually going to cut and paste it now so that I don't forget to post it. But there is a GoFundMe to a Twitter. There is a GoFundMe. I think they're calling it the PDX Sex Worker COVID-19 Support Fund. So you can search from that, or you can go look at my Twitter account, Sarah for PDX, and they'll retweet it off the campaign account too. So you can find that at Sarah 2020. And then there's the at SWOPPDX, which is another resource you can find online. It's the SecWorks. It's the SWOPPDX is oh, I must have that wrong. I'll try and put that up too. There's a sex worker protection operation social media account. I must have copied the link wrong, but I'll post that on my Twitter after the live stream as well. And then another organization that I've been supporting locally, even though they have branches in a couple of cities, including Las Vegas, because there's a lot of people engaged in that industry in that city as well. But the Cupcake Girls are a great organization that does peer support, counseling, general economic support, and just making sure that there's a safety net there for the people who are engaged in this industry and activity, and even things like people recovering from sex trafficking. And so being able to transition folks who aren't doing that with full consent and of their own volition is really important too. I want to make that clear. I don't support exploitation in any way. So the cupcakegirls.org is a really great organization, and I encourage you to check them out. They're scheduled to be having a gala in early June. I think it's June 5th or 6th. I have to double check that. But if you go to their website, you can find it on the Portland section of their website. I hope if you have the resources, maybe you'll buy a ticket to that. I'm sure it'll be a wonderful event, and we can support them and their organization and the good work that they're doing. Another group that's falling through the cracks that we need to keep an eye on, I think, is people who are undocumented and their access to unemployment benefits. So I came across an op-ed piece from the Oregon Center for Public Policy, which is a progressive think tank. They outlined that Oregon's undocumented workers play a key role in Oregon's economy, even as they toil for low wages. And many of these workers now are without work, unable to turn to the unemployment insurance system to help them. And so unless the Oregon legislature steps in to assist, Oregon could see even greater levels of tragedy unfold. And again, this is where that notion of who does what for whom, as Portlanders, I think it's incumbent on us to come together to make sure that our safety net is strong, and so that we are protecting people who are vulnerable, for whom the federal government we know is not working. That's why we've showed up to protest ICE. That's why we show up to protest JTTF. It's why we show up to protest the Trump administration and the inhumane practices coming out of, his whole DOJ. And it's also why when it comes to things at like the state level or even city of Portland, and we see government not stepping up for our most vulnerable people in our city, then we need to make sure that we're there as community to bridge the gaps. So I hope that the Oregon legislature can find a way to assist undocumented workers who aren't eligible for unemployment benefits from the federal government. But I also hope that as Portlanders, we can be there for these wage earners, right? These are taxpayers. They pay taxes. They have families. They have rent to pay. They have bills to pay. And so we need to make sure that they have wage replacement and that their needs are being met too. And if I can find some resources apart from that Oregon Center for Public Policy Research, I'll post them. But if you have them, by all means, please share them with me too, so that I can circulate them. Interesting day. Before I get into the next news, I had an endorsement interview with the Willamette Week. For those of you who've never been a candidate, being a candidate is such a weird experience. Sometimes I feel like I'm applying to get into a fraternity. Sometimes I feel like I'm applying to get a job. Sometimes I feel like I'm running a marathon. It's a really wild experience to run for public office. And running a competitive campaign like this is like running a small business. My staff just keeps growing as we work through this last leg of this race, if you will, before Election Day on May 19th, 2020, to get over 100,000 Portlanders to fill in that circle on the ballot, the vote by mail ballot that will come to your house with my name next to it. So it takes a lot of effort and a lot of time to do that. And the endorsement process is something that the general public probably wouldn't know that we spend a lot of time on, but we do. So for months now, we've been filling out long questionnaires to get interviews, and then you go to the interviews and you have to answer a lot of questions, and that's how you end up getting endorsements from community groups oftentimes, or also the newspapers. And today I had my endorsement interview with the Willamette Week, and also there was our incumbent mayor, Ted Wheeler. And it was just really interesting hearing them press him on the fact that he ran on one set of policies and promises and he hasn't really delivered, and yet he's asking the public for 4 more years. And it really inspired me and gave me a lot of hope, regardless of how that endorsement process works out, because sometimes I feel as if I'm being overcritical, or that maybe, he's not that bad, maybe we should give him a chance. But when you hear other people say and make the same critique that you've been saying, it lends some credibility, I think, to the fact that no, he sold the public a false bill of goods in terms of the level of progressivism to which he was committed and would maintain. He hasn't really made good on his promises with regard to ameliorating homelessness, the conditions of it, or the amount of it, or making life easier for people who are experiencing homelessness, housing affordability, congestion, not really being a climate champion, and on and on and on. The list goes on. And so I even pressed him on things like, why are you taking big checks from, the lobbying groups that are interested in shutting down things like tenant protections if you're committed to those tenant protections? So I'm not always that excited about the sluggishness, if you will, with which that administration has moved on certain things, especially ideas that I think are really good. So I was surprised to see today Alex Z at the Alex Zelinsky, her Twitter handle is Alex Z, at the Portland Mercury report that city-run tent villages are going to be coming online. This to me is great news. These emergency tent villages are something that I have long been proposing. When you think of R2D2, Right to Dream 2, it used to be downtown. I think it was 3rd and Burnside, and now it's over in a parking lot across from the Moda Center. But these are actually a pretty solid way for people who are experiencing homelessness to have a temporary safe space to sleep, to access peer support, to access hygiene services. And I actually prefer these to mass shelters, not for myself, but because that's what I've heard from people who are sleeping on the streets in terms of being able to keep their belongings with them, being able to keep their partners with them, being able to keep even their pets with them, being able to lock or secure their belongings so they can go out and go to work. Many people don't understand that people experiencing homelessness have jobs oftentimes. And if you're in a tent on the sidewalk and you have to leave to go to work, your things can be pilfered and your personal belongings, especially your valuables, stolen. And so when you have a secure perimeter around you, like a fence, minimal security, peer support, access to healthy food, clean drinking water, laundry facilities, and hand washing water, well, you're in a lot better shape than if you're just out on the street. And so that's why I've always been standing alongside and in strong support of the Village Coalition and things like Dignity Village and Right to Dream 2 and the Village of Hope that went over in North Portland, the village that we erected up in Lentz on Mother's Day in 2016, because these are an affordable way to secure people while they're unhoused without spending millions of dollars on shelters. I really do think that when it comes to the bulk of our money, we want to spend that on housing and not a lot of shelters. And so I think too, it's going to be important for us to think about how we can keep some of these innovations that are coming online in the crisis permanently. And by that, I mean, we've been able to move the needle on drinking water provision. We've been able to make it easier to have sanitation and hygiene stations around town. And so we need to say, you know what, if this is good enough in the crisis that's a COVID crisis, we also have a housing state of emergency. And this is exactly what I'm talking about in terms of the distributed shelter model, where every neighborhood association and church group and whoever wants to be a part of this can create safer spaces for people who are experiencing homelessness so that they're not just out on the concrete on a cardboard box when we don't have adequate access to housing and we don't have adequate access to shelter beds. And when oftentimes mass shelters, as we're seeing from San Francisco, these mass shelters are going to be petri dishes for COVID. It's not about true social distancing at all. And so for me, I am very happy to hear this, and I hope that we can continue to just break down these barriers and bring our community together and supporting our unhoused neighbors with compassion, with a real sense of commitment to meeting people's basic needs day to day and not spending unnecessary money policing people who are experiencing homelessness. Because when you think about the fact that 60% of our public safety budget goes to public safety, and a good bit of that goes straight to the Portland Police Bureau. And in 2017, over half of the arrests made by the Portland Police Bureau were of people experiencing homelessness, then we know that things like these city-run tent villages, or even if they're not city-run, but they're city-sanctioned, so they're decriminalized, and community groups and other nonprofits and churches are running them, but we just legalize it, then we have taken all of those people out of the criminal justice system and on a pathway to greater housing security and public health and well-being, just by virtue of them not being exposed to the sweeps, which you know I've been against for so long, because I've listened to people who are experiencing homelessness and they tell me these sweeps are inhumane. In cold weather, they are deadly. We lose our things. There's no accountability. They're expensive. The city is spending millions of dollars every year conducting them. And what I want to say is I want that money going to humans who are experiencing poverty. And I want to make sure that we're using that money to meet those people's needs and not feeding a criminal justice system that's not going to do one good damn thing for these folks other than put them into further lack of access to the basic things that they need to get on the right foot again. Now, I'm not saying that that means that we shouldn't be policing things that are truly criminal, but we really should focus on allowing our police to address criminal behavior and being in poverty and experiencing poverty is not a criminal act. So thanks to City of Portland for those city-run tent villages. As I said, better late than never, and let's keep them on that and making sure that we're holding a line on getting more of those. There is, what I'm understanding, is a testing kit shortage in Oregon. It's a little confusing right now, and I will try to get better information. According to Brad Schmidt at the Oregonian, this came out, I believe, 2 days ago. Oregon's only going to get about half of the 20,000 coronavirus tests that Governor Kate Brown promised. And it's not really clear whether it's because we don't need them or maybe we're holding off on them. But one of the things that I do know is that testing is going to be that major precursor to us opening up from the shelter in place again. So I would not get excited about anything opening up anytime soon. I want y'all to remember that staying in place is important, and if it's working, it's going to feel like overkill. That's one reason why we've been able to really get in front of this crisis in Oregon, is by getting these shelter in place policies here early. When you take this testing kit shortage into consideration, when you take the good weather that's coming into consideration, when you take the fact that we actually haven't been able to open up our streets for people to have space to roam in a socially distributed way, I just want to encourage you to stay close to home, stay in your neighborhoods, maintain the social distancing principles, because stopping them early can undermine our ability to effectively combat this. And so even if it feels like we did too much, that actually means it's working. We don't want to dial that back. We don't want to reopen the economy. We don't want to jump the gun on that, because if we do, then we can undermine all of the good work and all of the sacrifices that so many of you have made. And even the loss of revenue, the loss of businesses, the loss of income, personal income, and opportunities, that we do not want to undermine that by opening up too soon. So maintain that social distancing, be good neighbors over the weekend in maintaining that, and make sure that you're taking good care out there. There are a couple of things I do want to put on your radar, though. One, the voter pamphlet is out. This means that election time is coming. It's just about 3 weeks until those ballots hit your mailboxes. And I need you to get them, and I need you to fill them out, and I need you to return them quickly. In the meantime, I need you to find about 100,000 other people to help us make this happen. This is not a small task, winning a citywide election in the city of Portland. It's a huge undertaking. And so I need every single one of you involved in whatever way you can. We have been the beneficiary of the Open and Accountable Elections program. It's the 6-to-1 match for the first $50 that every Portlander gives us. It's matched 6-to-1 from a public fund that was set aside months ago, and that we can now only get those matching contributions right up through the end of this month. So if you were ever going to get to this campaign, this is your last shot to get those matching dollars. After that match is done, you're dollar for dollar. Right now, one of your dollars turns into 7. But after the end of this month, $1 will be $1, just like any other old campaign. So if you are ever going to give to this campaign, and if you have those resources on hand that you can commit, then even $5 turns into $35, $50 turns into $350, and $100 from 2 people in a household becomes $700. So that's huge for us. If you don't have money to give, which I know a ton of you don't, I know that times are tough. People don't have a lot on hand. This is phone banking season. I'm doing the phone banks myself. We had a great phone bank with Sunrise PDX that endorsed me, which was amazing. There were dozens of folks turned out, and it was fun to watch everyone calling in the Zoom call. I love it when you join the phone bank, because I have to phone bank whether you show up or not. And so making sure that you're there with me to keep me company when I get the wrong numbers and the missed dials is amazing. And that keeps me going, and it really helps us talk to voters. We're reaching a couple of hundred voters every time this happens, and that really adds up. The first time you come online, you'll get trained, but after that, you can just make calls on your own schedule. So if you have 15 or 20 minutes here or there, you can easily phone bank in your free time, even while you're doing rounds around your block in your neighborhood. You can just walk around and around. So it's super easy. For those of you who don't want to talk to strangers, you can go to sarah2020.com/volunteer and mark the checkbox to either sign up for our distributed organizer program, which allows you to text people from your phone. This is my texting. This is how I text, right? To text people from your phone, you text your contacts and then mark it in an app. And that's an amazing way to be a part of this, even if you don't want to talk to strangers. Right before this, I was in a digital house party, or they call it a virtual house party, I guess, but I was doing one of that, and it was so amazing. I love connecting with you. So if you want to bring your friends together for virtual mimosas, or however you want to get people together, we're in and out in an hour, and I'm able to answer questions one-on-one and get people involved, and we have a good conversation for that. It's really fun. So you can go to sarah2020.com/hosts to be a part of that. This weekend, I'm going to be doing, this week, I already delivered a few dozen lawn signs. They dropped me off another case of 50 in my garage, so I'm going to fill the extra cycle back up again, and I'll be out and about. And I know we have probably 6 to 8 people already signed up in their neighborhoods who are going to be delivering lawn signs. But if you want a lawn sign, sign up now, because the longer it's in the ground, the better that name recognition, and the more people see it, and then they want to circle that. They want to fill in that circle on their ballot too. So go to sarah2020.com/lawn signs, and you could be a part of that. If you want to deliver, mark a note that you'll deliver them, because we love it with the shelter in place. The more people that we can have delivering close to home, that helps us stay in compliance with the shelter in place order. So let us know if you're able to drop off some lawn signs by your house. And also be patient if it takes us to a little while to get them to you. Some of our neighborhoods have more volunteers than other. And since we're not just crisscrossing town in automobiles, but we're going really close to home on bikes, it's just making it a little more challenging for us to get those lawn signs to you right away. Coming down the pike, I'm just going to keep you posted to what's coming out next week, and then I'll let you go for the evening. So the podcast is going to be, a new episode of the podcast will be out on Tuesday. That's going to be amazing because it's dropping with a new policy. I know that for those of you who've been following me since the beginning of this campaign, it's in part because we put out comprehensive, solid, community-sourced policy proposals, and this one is no different. So what it is it's called our recovery and resiliency plan to get Portland through this COVID crisis and be a better city on the other side of it. It incorporates a lot of thinking from our Green New Deal policy, from our Housing for All policy, from our Rethinking Public Safety policy, and from our good government policy, but also incorporates a lot of things from the economic development policy that we weren't able to release because it was due to come out right when the COVID crisis hit, and we really needed to address the emergency. So it incorporates a lot of things with regard to equity and inclusion in our workforce, and how we're going to be able to take some of these strategic investments from the feds and deploy them for infrastructure that we need, and thinking about how can we maintain this amazing clean air on the other side of it, and how can we maintain these strong community networks on the other side of it, and even things like food security and the fact that we need to be doing more eco roofs and local gardening, and just really making sure that we're having strong, resilient, closed loop systems, economic systems, and energy systems here. It's such a testament to the durability and quality of the policy that my team has already put out, because it's more relevant now than even before the COVID crisis hits. And there's one example I'll give you. Everyone was talking about it like it was a little wild that I wanted to make investments in municipal broadband instead of expanding a freeway. But now you look out there, and when people have options, right? Not that it's a voluntary option, but people are making do with working from home more. Telecommuting is actually pretty low impact on our transportation system, but we can see that it's actually put a huge burden on our telecom network, right? And so what does it mean? What would it mean if you all had amazing broadband to every single house in this city? Well, our PPS students would be better cared for, our college students, community college students, our startups, our low-income communities. Having something as simple as fiber to every home, the way in the 20th century people had electricity or phone in their house, seems so basic now. And back in October, when I first started talking about that, it was a pretty left field idea, and now it's not looking so left field anymore. If it means that we can keep people off of our freeways, minimize the expansion of fossil fuel infrastructure, and the costs of that are far, far lower than if we think about paving miles of asphalt to accommodate automobiles that really are destroying the environment and air quality anyway. So these are the things that we need to be thinking about. I hope that all of you are taking good care. Do not hesitate to reach out if you are in need. We're connected to networks. Our Elder Outreach Network is in place, so you can sign up for that, either help or to volunteer at volunteer@sarah2020.com. And also, if you have any needs at all, don't hesitate to reach out. I know a lot of you are dealing with a lot of challenging things out there. And I just want to encourage you to stay connected to each other, stay grounded in optimism so that you have the energy to face what comes at you every single day. Make sure you express gratitude for the things that you have. For me, that's something that helps me when I'm feeling kind of down or feeling kind of cranky. I try to think about something that I'm grateful for, and it brings me right back up again. And I'm really just grateful for all of you. I'm grateful for my beautiful city. I'm grateful for the clean air. I'm grateful for my community. And I'm grateful for this campaign and the ways that we're able to reach out to people all across Portland and plant the seeds of the future that I know we're going to be able to realize when we come together on the other side of this with creativity and a sense of innovation and making sure that everyone is taken care of and included in the prosperity that goes on here. That said, have a great weekend. Enjoy the sunshine. Stay healthy and well. And whatever you're going through, we're here with you. Bye-bye.